Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. Now, I've been to Great Britain, mostly England, mostly the London area, but actually quite a few other places there, quite a few times. Oh boy, it is a wonderful country to visit. The architecture is amazing. It's a beautiful place. I highly recommend it. But I'm not going to pretend that visiting there or all the other countries that I've visited makes me an expert on England or on foreign policy. If just visiting countries made you competent in that area, hey, I could be the next Secretary of State. But no, it doesn't. It takes a lot more than that. So I had no idea which way the Brexit vote was going to go, just like most people didn't. And one of the things that made it hard to predict was that the people who were arguing to stay were pointing out the inevitable consequences of an exit vote, which are now coming true. Whereas the people who were arguing to leave were appealing to fear and prejudice, which, believe me, can be a very winning combination. Now, they promised certain things. The leaders of the exit vote, they promised that for one thing, that England would save money because they would no longer have to pay $300 million to the Eurozone. But what they were getting back out of the Eurozone was worth a lot of money too. I don't know the exact figures. But they were getting a lot of benefits from being a part of this Eurozone. And as a matter of fact, the amount of money that they have lost, that the British economy has lost, is more than the total of payments that Britain has been making since the Eurozone was created. So for example, the British pound lost 10% on Friday, 10% of its value on Friday. It's lost another 3% today. So if you're a British citizen, the money in your pocket is now worth 13% less than it was on the day before the Brexit vote happened. The British economy went from being the 5th largest economy in the world to the 6th. Lloyd's Bank, for example, lost 20% of its value. So, and several other banks. So the British economy is taking a huge hit. And that's going to continue for a while. Now, it's going to take a while for the whole Brexit thing to be completed. And what happens between now and then is not clear. Because Britain is going to have to renegotiate trade deals with the rest of the world. They were included in the trade deals that the Eurozone has, but those no longer will apply to Britain. So in 2 years, they have to renegotiate trade deals with all these other countries, plus the Eurozone itself, because they're no longer going to be that part of that common market. And the Eurozone is going to play hardball with them. So just to make them an example for other countries who might think about leaving the Eurozone. Also, it looks like Scotland and Northern Ireland will, well, there's a good chance, I'm not saying it's definite, but there's a good chance that they're going to leave the British Commonwealth in order to stay part of the Eurozone. So the British Empire is going to shrink a little more. England is also going to lose its position as the entry point into the Eurozone. There are a lot of businesses, including banks and businesses in general, that had set up main offices in London because that was the entry point into the Eurozone. It was very convenient. It was in a country where English is the major language, and it was a very convenient point of entry into the whole Eurozone. But that's not going to be the case anymore. So those offices will be moved to Paris and Berlin and other European countries. It's estimated that they'll lose at least 3,000 jobs from that, but it's probably going to be a little bit more than that. And it's the same way with imports. Imports that used to go through England won't be going through England anymore. They'll have to go through ports on the mainland. And with tourism, when the Brexit is complete, you won't be able to go to England and then travel freely through the Eurozone. You'll have to start in the Eurozone in order to do that. And see, here's the problem. When you do tourism, one of the things you do is you shop. And once England completes its separation from the Eurozone, if you go shopping in England and then go and enter the Eurozone, well, you're going to have to declare the goods that you bought in England and pay taxes on them, which, at least for Americans, you know how we are about taxes. So we might be willing to go shopping and then pay taxes when we go home. But we're certainly not going to pay taxes twice on anything that we bought. So it'd be much more convenient to enter into Europe through a port on the continent, and then do your travel all around, do whatever shopping you're going to do, and then you pay your taxes when you get home. If you're going to go to England, it's going to have to be a separate trip. So what's interesting is that the fear about Muslim immigration was one of the driving points of the Brexit. A lot of British citizens thought that Brussels was going to dictate to them that they were going to have to take in Syrian refugees. But if you've watched the refugee crisis, you've seen that Brussels has had no say in it. That each country is making its own decision, and as a matter of fact, that's contributed to the crisis because there has been no unified response by the European Union. And the matter of fact, the biggest problem that Britain has had with not refugees, but with immigration, has been with Polish immigrants moving to England and setting up shop there and working cheaper than British citizens would. And probably that should have been addressed, but Great Britain had control of its immigration. Matter of fact, they were not part of the free zone, the free travel zone. If you went to England from the Eurozone, you still had to go through customs and immigration. Now, a lot of British citizens didn't realize that, and they should have. And another thing is that, like, a lot of the Brits resent the austerity measures which were placed after the economic crisis, which they've stifled a lot of growth that could have happened in the UK, and they blame the Eurozone for that. But those austerity measures were created by David Cameron and the Conservative government, and the Eurozone had nothing to do with that. Brussels did not dictate what was going to happen to England. Now, some people say that this Eurozone vote is going to benefit Donald Trump. And by the way, Brits, you should have known that if Trump was for it, it was a bad idea. And the issues that created the Brexit, I mean, fear and prejudice and ignorance, I mean, they are certainly part of what has created the Trump phenomenon. But if from now until the election, the British economy keeps on the way it has since the Brexit vote, it's simply going to illustrate how little Trump knows about how the world works and how bad his judgment is. Well, thanks for listening.